There was this line about the man in the middle of the motorcade learns to tie his boots again, or something to that effect. Like
Yeah, yeah.
that it almost sounds like a very morbid description of like what happens when you get shot in the back of your head. Like you slouch down to where your
Oh,
shoes are,
yeah.
behind your shoe or your boot. Like it's a real sick way of being like, yeah, that guy just got shot. Like, ooh.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Audiophiles. My name's John. His name's Andy. So, if you've got a trumpet, get on your feet, brother, and blow it. If you've got a field that don't yield, well, get up now and hoe it. More on that later. But first, we've got music to listen to. And it being a Friday, a lovely, lovely Friday, we have a tune suggested by one of our wonderful viewers. In this instance, it is Neil Donaldson 7559, and he dropped his suggestion on our welcome message page thingy, whatever. I never look at it, but yeah. And he has suggested a tune by a magazine, a band I'm very familiar with, and we've done one before. The track is Motorcade. And as I said, I know it. So Andy is up to bat to have a listen to Howard and his chums. Check out a bit of magazine. Um, I think we said before with magazine, you're not really at all familiar with them.
No, no, I'm not. All I know is that the lead singer was also part of Buzzcocks. Is that correct?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah. And outside of Permafrost, that's the name of the track we did, right? I don't want to screw that
yeah,
up. That's all I'm really, familiar with from them. I remember Permafrost being like a beast to kind of like
yes,
wrap my head around, and
yes.
I liked it, but was also semi confused
Scared
by
and
it.
scared by it. Yes.
Yeah, yeah, it was very ominous feel. So if that translates to this, then I'm going in, with some prejudice here about what I might get when I dive into this. Although this could sound completely different, this could be they're dabbling into like polka music for all I know. So
Who knows? Well, I do, but yeah, who knows? It's your time to find out.
yeah, yeah. Let me go off, give it a listen, and I will gladly come back and tell you all what I make of it. That intro was awesome. I loved it. The striking of the drums had this like really earnest intention to it, and the cymbals were so lush, and I loved that sort of kind of tinkling bit on the keys, coupled with those strong chords. Yeah, all of it was really really nice, very atmospheric, kind of tranquil on the keys, but everything else, all the other instruments had this kind of like resolute kind of sound, which made for an interesting pairing and definitely caught my attention right away. Which is exactly what a good introduction to a tune is supposed to do. So let's take that back and listen to it again. There's this interesting tone to his delivery, and it's got like this, like just a slight dash of like I don't know, sinister to it. And they're also doing this interesting thing with his. I don't know if it's all the music. I'm hearing it the most in his vocals, where it's like this weird kind of phasing, fading in and out effect that's just slightly employed on the production, and that adds to this weird atmospheric energy this whole song really has going for it. But they're playing with the vocals as well as the music to give it all this really interesting atmosphere and mood. I'm liking this a lot. This sounds really, really good. So let's see where we go.
Nowadays, and my friend says, listen to the stupid things they're making you say.
Okay. Tempo shift.
Here comes the motorcade, moving so slow and hard, like the singing of horses, hoping swaying the boulevard. Here is the old man, all faces turn unanimously. The smoke rises in his veins. It all security.
That lead was so great. It was so edgy, and it was like it felt like it was like screeching with anguish and writhing around. Um, the lead almost became sentient because I can put like human attributes to the way it sounded. It was incredible. Um, and from the moment they've increased this tempo, it's just been go, and they haven't really stopped yet. They're just adding different elements here and there at breakneck speeds, uh, which is all really jarring and interesting. I wonder what this shift signifies in maybe in a larger story picture that I haven't picked up on, and I won't. Uh, this is definitely one of those where you have to go back and listen to it, and get some perspective on what it's about, uh, to really like educate and fully form your opinion of it, from like a big picture. Like I love the way it sounds, but I'm further intrigued to learn what it's about and perhaps why some of these choices have been made. But I have, from just a pure enjoyment standpoint, agreed with every one of them. And I want to take that back. Forgive me. Mm. There's Venus Organ.
Here comes the motorcade, moving so slow and hard, like the singing of horses, hoping swaying the boulevard. Here is the old man, all faces turn unanimously. back of his car. Into the null and void he shoots. The man at the center of the motorcade has learned to tie his boots. In the back of his car, in the null and void he sees the man at the center of the motorcade. Can choose between coffee and tea. In the boulevards, the monarchy holds sway. In the boulevards, the monarchy holds sway. In the boulevards, the monarchy holds sway. In the boulevards, the motorcade holds sway.
Oh, wow. That could have gone for another 5 minutes and 40 seconds. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I really, really loved all of the just there's a lot of like dynamics and playing with dynamics throughout this song. Um, the tempo switches, incredible, kind of made everything more turbulent when there was already this kind of underlying uneasy, unnerving, like I think a word I used before, sinister feel to all of it. Um, it just created so much tension that it reminded me of like John and I often talk about like a correlation between music and cinema. I think that's just because we both love music and movies, and obviously, if there wasn't a connection there, why would we have soundtracks and things like that and scores? But this was akin to like a thriller or a suspense film. The way it left me feeling, sort of the ups and downs it took me through, um, head scratching moments, but in the best way, where you feel like you're being like challenged a little bit. Something that's not so prepackaged and easy to digest, which is great. I mean, there's always room for in my heart for stuff like that too. But this, I love music and all forms of art really that kind of like make you think a little bit, and this did that for sure. Yeah, I love the bass. Good God, the bass was so good in this. And the rhythm section as a whole. I mean, the drums are fabulous too. Some really great guitar stuff. The only thing for me that wasn't like out of this world were like, is it Devoto? His lyric, or I mean his voice. It was good at times. I don't know if he didn't shift into maybe more of a singing voice at times, it wouldn't have been for me a little bit more enjoyable. But I mean, he played the part. It was an excellent pairing for this kind of music. It's just I'm not a huge fan of his voice on this track. But it was as a complete package. This thing was an absolute pleasure to listen to, and I will be returning to it in the future. For that, I'm certain. So, to learn more about this track, because God knows I've got questions, we're going to have to go and discuss them and more with John.
Rhododendrons, he's back. So, you've had a tackle of the old Motorcade by magazine. What are your impressions?
Oh, well, it made quite an impression on me, I'll say that. I loved this song. I thought it was great. I thought it was fabulous. And it kind of like helped me in a weird way appreciate permafrost a little bit more. to see like more dimension as to who they are, how they write music, and how they come at things. And the one thing that I really knew for certain when I walked away from having listened to that was how much kind of mood and atmosphere playing that they do, and they create this feeling of like uh unease or tension with the kind of stuff
Tension,
that they
yeah.
did. Yeah, yeah. And this had that in spades, though this was much more manic than I think Permafrost was, which was it was more constant, and it was
Mm.
you knew what you were getting throughout all of it. This took you on like ups and downs and loop to loops. Um, and I appreciated that a lot, actually. That was probably the part that I liked, that made me like this more than Permafrost, was that it had different movements to it, and took me different places as opposed to just putting me in this one biome of music like Permafrost did. So the song starts with this like solemn but tranquil bit of like 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 kind of like tinkling on the keys, which are accented by like this really earnest drum embellishments as well as these lush cymbal kind of splashes, that were done so deftly it almost like cascaded the sound of the
Mm.
cymbal over the music. This is soon joined by the strums of these really intense strums of the guitar chords, and shortly after that, like the beat proper kind of propels the song forward with a fair bit of movement and some stellar bass work underneath, but sort of beneath the surface, doing these really great fills that would inch higher and higher on the neck. And I loved that so much.
Shaman Barry, he's very good.
Dude, so good on this track. Uh, your man, it's Howard Devoto, is that correct? Or is it
Yeah.
Devoto? Okay, yeah, he joins in the mix, and his voice has an almost like sinister tone to it. Um,
Always.
Yeah, yeah. And I like it because I like it in that it helps convey the mood of like the song, and it couples well with the music. There are times where I'm like, I wish you would shift a little bit into like just show a little bit of range, or just do something else to flavor it a little bit more. But that's literally the only hair I can split on this entire track, is like if there's a little bit more diversity to his lyrical or vocal approach. But the what he's doing is perfect for this atmosphere anyway, sort of this mood that they've created. So the this verse has a lot of lyrical content, I'll note, and I don't catch all or very much of it, but from the bits that I can catch, they have this sort of stream of consciousness quality to them. Like he's describing what he's seeing and making observations and quoting a friend who's saying something in his ear. So it's all like just sort of like what's happening very much in a moment, which I thought was kind of interesting. And then abruptly and quite unexpectedly, the song veers into a completely different direction at the 2:05 mark, and the tempo increases exponentially, and this distortion laden lead guitar takes a much more forward role in the song, along with these organ like flourishes that just grow on me throughout the song, which is odd because I'm not normally one that is like, oh, I love the organ. But the melody that it plays throughout,
Mm.
at different parts, is so earwormy to me. Um, I also have to note that again, the bass is just fucking fabulous with these jaunty runs during this portion. And instrumentally, there are these manic bursts that goes on for about 25 seconds before Devota's vocals rejoin the song and delivers what I assume to be the chorus. After that, we get even more frenetic, distorted, and bendy lead guitar. It's almost like the lead is writhing around and screeching in anguish, which is wholly unsettling but fucking cool, as far as like this piece of art that they've built. um and I like it even though it is incredibly unnerving. Again, the vocals join in after this like bombastic lead motif, and right after he delivers this stanza of lyrics, we get treated to this really infectious melodic bit of key slash organ work that's burrowing its way further into my head. And I'm not sure what it is about the melodic keys at the 3:30 mark, but I love how it flowed over this rollicking tempo and rhythms. that the song has. But hello, what's this? We get a serious downshift in the tempo, and it's only I mean just over 10 seconds it falls into this, and it does so perfectly. Like the drums and the bass, the way it steps into the slower tempo,
Yeah.
note by note, strike by strike, is just perfection. And this bit allows for so much more space between chord strikes. More lead work comes in almost disjointed fashion. Almost like it's having to tame itself to play its lead over something slower in tempo for the first time because before it was so frantic. But yeah, it just keeps it together, the lead that is. And this motif also is very short lived, and it ends on this like drum fill power chord, and more vocals join the mix during this more spacious portion. And again, we are getting a glimpse into what the narrator is seeing, which sounds like a man in the back of a car in the middle of a motorcade. And the drums begin to pound after he delivers the line about Boulevard, and then he delivers this line, the motor or something about the motorcade held sway or hold sway. Um, this bit repeats and repeats until we get the final note and a resonating like fade out. And I haven't a clue the specifics of what the song is about, or what he's trying to convey from a narrative perspective. But regardless of that, I enjoyed this angsty like shift in tempo and sound dynamics that was used throughout the song. And these kind of tactics and choices gave the song dimension and depth while also getting under the skin by toying with mood and tension. It's sort of akin to how a thriller or suspense film might do the same or leave one feeling the same. And I thoroughly enjoyed this track for all its quirks and twists and turns. And yeah, it was a pleasure to experience this. I'm glad that I got to revisit them because again, it kind of helps me understand how I feel about the last track that we did by them and about them as a whole. So yeah, this is a great tune. I really enjoyed it. But I need to know, like, what on top of everything else you're going to tell me, what is this about? Because it's so oddly specific in its depiction, or it sounds like anyway.
There's a bit of controversy about that as well. I will get into that. I mean, just my take on this. This is a great song, really is. It's creative as well. But I always get the feeling, listen to this, that the main portion, the slower portion of the song, is almost processional. And I picture you watching something on an old newsreel.
Mm.
And so you're watching this motorcade, and it always seems to be going really slow. And then that middle-ish section is like you're inside it, and suddenly you're experiencing it, and it's all like, and then you're back to the sort of like newsreel version of the
Yeah,
motorcade.
it's funny you mention that because when I think of motorcade, I don't know why this is where my head goes, but one of the first things I think of is like one of the most infamous motorcades, and that's the one where Kennedy was assassinated in Dallas. And like yeah, and you're lending it is cinematic. That's a way I sort of interpreted it before you even sort of spelled out the real analogy, which totally translates and checks out. But now it only taps into that more because everything I know about it has been ingested through old newsreels of
Yeah,
how that played out. And the the sort of the most turbulent part of the song, that lead and the writhing and all that, could be the
yeah,
chaos moment.
panic. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, when that sets in. So it's further fortifying this, the only vision I could draw when I think of Motorcade. I'm sure that's not what it's about or whatever, but it's sort of where my head goes now that we've kind of talked it out a little bit.
yeah, yeah. And even that ending, the way there's da 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 da, da and it repeats. It's almost like the end of a spool that flicks round and keeps
Mhm.
going like that. But
Mhm.
anyway, I will get into it. So yeah, as we said before, we have previously gone over a track called Permafrost from their second album, Secondhand Daylight. I'll put a link into the episode there because it's all about the band and everything and more about them. So I will concentrate really on this track and this album. It comes from Real Life, back there, which is the debut studio album by Magazine. It has received critical acclaim, widespread acclaim, and is considered to be a pioneering post-punk record. It's also been described as new wave and art rock. And I think this and the second one in particular use the synthesizers and some of their others. They're very musically accomplished, which is flies against the face of punk. But these sort of proggy sort of, labels thrown at them as a bit because of that. So just to go over the personnel, Howard Devoto, vocals. John McGeoch, the wonderful John McGeoch that we mentioned before and Susan Banshee reaction as well, guitar and saxophone for the album. Barry Adamson, very wonderful bass player, and his solo stuff's fantastic as well. Dave Formula, keyboards.
The rapidity that he played that bass with on some of those parts, I was just thinking like the cramping that would be going on.
Yeah.
Thunderous. Go on, I'm sorry.
He's very good. Yeah, Dave Formula, keyboards, and Martin Jackson, drums. So the album was written the year before, after DeVito had split from Buzzcocks, and he wrote all the lyrics. Just as a side note from this, so he started with Buzzcocks, and I just finished reading the book Unknown Pleasures by Peter Hook about his time in Joy Division. And one of the things, they're all Manchester bands, and Buzzcocks was seen as like the sort of the friendly fathering of punk music in Manchester. They arranged the two gigs where the Pistols came and played in Manchester. And the other band, people went to see them. There was like 20 at the first gig. Everyone claims they went to and weren't there. But Hook actually's got his ticket in the book, a photostat of it. So he was there, and so was Barney and others. And then there was like a 200 or 300 at the second gig, and they all went off and formed bands. Mr. Morrissey was there and some other people, but these bands, these nascent punk bands, would all go to Buzzcocks for advice and help and how to put things together, how to get bookings, and they were seen as like the sort of the overall sort of friendly uncles looking after all these young bands like Joy Division. And the amount of times you mentioned going to see Pete Shelley for advice in the book is amazing, just so many times. So it's really interesting. But he split how developed because of the sort of the shackles of this punk ethos. He wanted to branch out, and he certainly did. So on this album, the two earlier songs, Shot by Both Sides and The Light Pours Out on Me, were co-written by DeVito and Pete Shelley, were the Buzzcocks, and he sort of let them have it. And actually, Shot by Both Sides, which is their magazine's first single, uses a chord progression, was suggested by Pete Shelley and was actually used in a Buzzcocks track called Lipstick. Most of the album was written by Devoto and John McGeoch. However, Motorcade was co-written with the group's keyboardist at the time, the classically trained composer Bob Dickinson. He played with the group in mid-77 before being dismissed without warning at a meeting convened by Devoto in November. The very, very sort of a post-punk thing to do, just like out you go. We're getting sort of shades of Marky Smith here and other people that run their own groups. But Dickinson said,
really talented is so silly to me, but I mean, maybe it's personal or something I'm not aware of, but that's
usually is, yeah. Dickinson has cited the influence of Eric Satie on the elements of the keyboard part in this song. I've heard of Satie, I haven't listened to this stuff, so anyway. Just as an aside, the music for the album's final track, Parade, was written by Dixon's replacement, Dave Formula, with bassist Barry Adamson. And the opener, Definitive Gaze, that track was actually recorded a few months before the album, an appeal session where it was called Real Life, and it uses those lyrics, and they called the album that and changed the title of the track. So they toured for much of 77 and early 78, appeal sessions, etc. And then they recorded the album itself between March and April. And the album was produced and engineered by John Leckie, who we mentioned many times in sort of post-punk music as well. So yeah, got great reviews. There's a few interesting ones here. Just to quote The Guardian, John McGeoch's unpredictable, distressed flare guitar solos and Dave Formula's bold, busy synths gives Devoto's sociopathic disgust a terrifying grandeur, which influenced, among others, Radiohead and the Manic Street Preachers. That's quite a nice little painting of it. And Uncut said, without the inspiration provided by these records, he's talking about, their 4 albums at the time, vast and untreasurable realms of modern pop would never have been conjured. but bands including Radiohead, Franz Ferdinand, Pulp, The Smiths, and uncountable others who've chosen to regard intelligence as a flauntable virtue. Magazine wrote the book. And you
Yeah.
kind of get that feeling with Devoto that he's got hidden agendas and he's not just saying la la la, she don't love me no more.
Yeah.
Um, Real Life has been included in a number of best of lists. Sounds ranked at number 89 in its 100 best albums of all time in 1986, and in 2006, Uncut ranked it at number 37 in its list of 100 greatest debut albums.
Wow.
And in 2005, it was included in the book 1,001 Albums You Must Hear Before You Die. And it just so
Oh,
happens
they made a
I
book of
have a
that?
copy. There's Deborah. So yeah, we've been actually on this page before because there is Magazine Real Life, and there is Mr. Lydon there with Pill's first album. So I think we probably flipped it before, and there's Bruce and Funkadelic, Throbbing Gristle. Yeah, it's really good, strong. Yeah, Buzzcocks, Talking Heads first album as well.
Mhm.
I'm Talking Heads, sorry, Buzzcocks first album, Talking Heads album. Ton away. The Adverts, Big Star, Residents, oh wow, and Jam, Old Cons, really good. Yeah, there you go. What a time to be alive. So I shall now go over the lyrics. I will not do it in Howard style. I believe all that I read now. Night has come off the corners. Shadows flicker, sweet and tame, dancing like crazy mourners. The man with the hot dogs sells lemonade. Someone over there needs first aid, while me and the rest of the world await the touch of the motorcade. No one finds time to turn a blind eye. You can't be too careful nowadays. And my friend says, listen to the stupid things they're making you say. And then we get that tempo shift with
Mhm.
the sort of guitar and the keyboards. Here comes a motorcade, moving so slow and hard, like a snake in a closet, holding sway in the boulevard. Here is your man, all faces turn unanimously. The small fry who sizzle in his veins, in all security. Another instrumental rip up. Here is your man, all faces turn unanimously. The small fry who sizzled in his veins, in all security. Keys, and then the tempo switch back down, as you said. In the back of his car, into the null and void he shoots. The man of the center of the motorcade has learned to tie his boots. There's that slower guitar riff. In the back of his car, in the null and void, he sees the man in the center of the motorcade can choose between coffee and tea. In the boulevard, the motorcade holds sway, and that's repeated 4 times. So yeah, a lot of people have put JFK shooting into this, projected into it, and you'll see it in lots of things, and people are actually quoting it as fact. It's about that. There's a little snippet from they re-released Real Life in 2007, and they remastered it. And there's a booklet inside, and of Motorcade, Devoto said in quotes, "Some of that idea for the song came from reading an article about a South American dictator who threw money out of the window of his limousine. Brackets, John F. Kennedy was never in my mind." Now, you can choose to believe him or not. I think
Mhm.
probably it's a mixture of all different sorts. How can you not describe this big motorcade without, even for a short time, thinking about JFK? It's
Yeah.
got to pop into your head at some
Especially
point.
given when he wrote it, only a couple decades removed from that being and him being
Yeah,
alive
yeah,
when it happened. Like even your subconscious would leak into your writing if you were originally inspired by this other motorcade politician situation from South America or whatever. Like it would
yeah. So
so
again, it's a wee bit sort of opaque, but it's still evocative. There's some images, and you're kind of trying to work out what's going on, but it's there. You're in there. You can smell the hot dogs, and you
yeah.
feel this gravity of this motorcade moving
Was
slowly. But yeah,
there was this line about the man in the middle of the motorcade learns to tie his boots again, or something to that effect. Like
yeah, yeah,
that it almost sounds like a very morbid description of like what happens when you get shot in the back of your head. Like you slouch down to where your shoes are,
yeah.
behind your shoe or your boot. Like it's a real sick way of being like, yeah, that guy just got shot. Like, ooh, Yeah,
Yeah,
so
yeah. I know. There's all sorts of stuff in there,
yeah, that
isn't
you can
there?
kind of like, if you let your mind wander, can go places that isn't explicitly stated, which is kind of what's so cool about the broadness of the lyrics that he chose. You know how interpreted they could be.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like the guy with the lemonade and the hot dogs is on the grassy knoll as well. You think
Yeah,
he's up to no good, he's
yeah,
not
yeah,
really selling lemonade and hot dogs. But anyway,
yeah.
um, just to sort of sum up this, yeah, it's a great, great song. It's a belter of a debut album, really is. It's more accessible Secondhand Daylight. They certainly sort of so you get like the Shot by Both Sides was their single, and you can hear the roots of that, from Buzzcocks and Punk. It doesn't make it any less, but it's a decent taster single. First two tracks, Definitive Gaze and My Top, are absolutely great.
Mm.
Recoil is a similar sort of punky, what is the most punky song probably on the album. Burst is a fantastic, grandiose track, which owes a lot to that sort of Eno period of Roxy music. And you can quite easily imagine Brian Ferry crooning over it, squinty eyed. It's probably my second favorite song on the album. Um, I'm not a fan of the Great Beautician in the Sky, so we'll gloss over that one. And the last track, Parade, is okay. It's quite pretty, but for me, it kind of doesn't fit the album really, and it's a weird one to finish on. It's all right, but the light that pours out of me is a fantastic song. Again, you can hear that sort of Buzzcocks type, later Buzzcocks influence in it, but then McGeoch's sort of guitar is really powerful. And it was the first magazine track I ever heard, and it probably remains one of my favorites. I still think it would be a great soundtrack to a serial killer film or TV show, just because of the way it goes. But yeah, along with Pill's debut, this album really set the path for post-punk and remains a really important album.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think I will wrap things up and say thanks again for suggesting this, Neil Donaldson. Really good shout. It's great to listen to it again, and I'm sure Andy enjoyed it as well. Brilliant. Folks out there, tell us what you think. If you like this, do hit the like button. Please drop some comments about this song, about this album, magazine, in general, post-punk, whatever you want, in the words of Status Quo. Yeah, just drop us a line. We love hearing from you. If you haven't subscribed already, please think about it and then just do it. It makes sense. That being said, thanks again so much for watching, and we'll see all of you on the next episode of The Audiophiles.
See you later, guys.